Okay, hey everybody. I'm Darek Mazzone. You're on my Facebook feed, so you probably know who I am. And this is Wallpop. We're doing Wallpop KXP, an interview. This is a new thing. We're in a new time, so I thought it'd be kind of fun to try this particular way to share more information and content and less content in a context of a corporate sense, but just like interesting stuff, interesting stories of artists that I've been playing for a long time on KEXP as they are evolving, as the reality of the times that we're in right now, welcome pandemic and political turmoil, to how these artists are actually creating new work based on the influences that are around them, and also getting new ideas either from experiences of travel when we could travel, or just in general concepts of relating to music and to art and to community and to business. All of those things are encapsulated in a band that I like quite a bit by the name of Thievery Corporation. We've become friends over many years. We've been working together for a long time on different levels. And every time I'm in DC, I try to see them, and I specifically try to see one person who lives there right now, and his name is Eric Hilton, and he is the co-founder of Thievery Corporation. He has a couple of new records out. He's in this really interesting space where he's producing 2 to 3 records a year. The new one comes out in just, I think, tomorrow, actually, called The Impossible Silence. The one that was right before was the Infinite Everywhere. There's a bunch of stuff that's coming up, and I'm super intrigued into what Eric has been up to, what manifested this sudden, hey, I need to make music, because Thievery is super successful. You know, when they could tour, records were coming out, and they still are. The band is still together, but there was a lot there with the band. There was like different musicians, vocalists. It's a very global band. It really evolved from its beginnings. When I was a fan, I have like one of the first singles. And so here's a whole bunch of new work from an artist that has been at the forefront, but yet not at so much with Thievery. Now he's presenting his own work. So let's see, technology working, adding Eric Hilton. Eric, how are you?
Great, Darek. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad we were able to figure out the technical stuff. That's awesome.
I feel like we barely did, but
we
yeah.
did. It's all good. Can you any way you could lift your computer up a little bit so I get a little more headroom with you? Perfect. Okay, so you're in your studio, the Winter Palace, right?
I am. Yeah, this is actually the basement of my house. So it's been a savior for me this year.
I've been to your home, and thank you for the wonderful hospitality. I remember the last time I was there was a couple of years ago. You have a really great aesthetic, and it's seen in the design elements of Thievery's record. Now I'm looking at it in the context of your record. And even, I was telling you earlier that I was listening to your most recent Spotify playlist, and it was a beautiful mix, and it really spoke to your influences in there. And so we're going to cover a lot here, but I wanted to just step back a little bit and ask you, how are you surviving? How is this reality that we're dealing with right now? How is it affecting you? And not so much like, financially per se, but emotionally. How are you dealing with this space we're in?
I'm not going to lie to you. It's very difficult. I put on a happy face for people in my family and friends, and I'll be fine. I think we'll all be fine, knock on wood. But it's very challenging, and making music has definitely been a great escape for me. Walks, nature, as much as possible. I really feel for the people who cannot get into nature during this time. That seems extra torturous in a way, because it's been my savior. I've got my Fitbit on right now, and I've got mad steps every day.
Yeah.
I just like taking walks as much as I can, and just one day at a time.
Okay, so you're dealing. I'm glad that you told me that. Anybody that tells me it's like I'm fine, nothing's wrong, I was like, dude, you are in serious denial here right now. we need to have an intervention. But at the same time, this is an interesting place to be in for an artist to make music. There is this pressure, especially with you. You've got your music, you've got a bunch of other things that are going on, and there's a lot of pressure pulling you away from music, pulling you away from these things because you have responsibilities and people depend on you. So suddenly now you're home, you're in your studio, you've got your stuff there, and you're making stuff. And so I'm always, I just had an interview a little while ago with an artist, and I'm like, there are two types of trajectories here. Either you're like, I can't deal, and I'm putting my hood on and I'm not doing anything, or I'm like, wait, I'm going to take this time to actually make something. There's something here that's manifesting ideas for me. Speak to that if you can. Like, where are you in that space? Obviously, the latter, because you're putting out. I look up as like another record, another single, another record. So there's the muse, shall we say, is calling Eric Hilton. What is she saying?
Oh, well, she's always been calling. The question is how often
maybe
can I
louder.
Answer? Right, yeah. For me, I've never really had a creative block. I've just had a time constraint. And maybe if I had more time to make music, I would have more of a creative block, right? But it builds up for me, and I come up with ideas just walking or, just in the course of a normal day, and I remember the ideas and I apply them in the studio, and that seems to work pretty well. But it is very new for me to work on my own, writing at a laptop, or working with a brand new engineer, Igor, who you just met. He's been tremendously influential. Yeah, he's great. I love being a solo artist. I never thought that I would love it this much. And it's nothing about, you know, Rob or any of the people that I've worked with in the before. You know, we love each other as much as always. But it's just kind of cool to make all the decisions yourself and have that type of control and responsibility. So that's been a great thing. And also, I think in the last several years, the pressure to make music to be performed was building up. You know, I felt like every time I was making a Thievery song, I would start thinking, would this work live? And I don't want to think like that. I just like to make music to make music. And I do find that I like making a lot of instrumental music these days. So. Mm-hmm.
What is it that, okay, so that's true. That's having it your own is great, but it's also interesting because then you don't have a soundboard. You know, it's like, when do you know it's good? When do you know, like, because it's easy, you know, it's like people form bands for a variety of reasons, but one of them is like, I'm not really that sure if this is the thing. And then you're like, okay, so I got to stop somewhere and move on to the next song. How do you know when it's done?
It's the trippiest and most nerve-wracking thing to realize that you're trusting your gut on everything and you're just going with your own instincts. And it's quite strange, actually. I enjoy it, but it also gives me a level of anxiety that I haven't actually had in the studio before.
Got it.
And but I'm kind of enjoying that anxiety as well. So.
No, it's true. It's a catalyst. Yeah. I first heard you in the we're going back in time right now, in the Exodus Quartet.
Yeah.
And that was great, and it was an interesting time. You know, quote unquote acid jazz was manifesting, and you could say, you know, or I don't know. I mean, there's the evolution of genre is interesting. You could say Thievery kind of manifested itself from there. You guys found each other, and through that was the 18th Street Lounge. You know, there was this. You guys caught fire, and there was community around it, and part of it had to do with being in D.C. and how D.C. is such a weird little city, or big city, I should say. But the scene there is very international because it's the capital, so you got all these embassies. And you guys found a sound and you found a vibe which spoke to the future in a really cool way, but also spoke to the past. And if you're looking at and listening to your record, there's still a thread there. Like, you know, you speak about these artists that have influenced you and these records that have influenced you, and here you are creating a manifestation of that. And, you know, I never expected you to suddenly go into a whole other direction, which is fine if you did. But there is a thread that's going here. If you hear like the Exodus Quartet to Thievery to here, talk about that, please. Like, because it seems like you've been listening and honing and putting stuff together. And as I was listening and, you know, to this in various settings, prepping for this, it's like, there's a story here. There's like, and it's not like a brand new, like, you know, I went to Peru and had some ayahuasca and now I am like, you know, I have a new middle name, which is fine. No judgment. Everybody's got their path. But there's a story here. Like, you know, there's something going on here that, like, chapter 1 or even like, you know, part 1, part 2, part 3. Talk to that if you can.
Well, I think anybody that knows me, and you know me pretty well, you know that I have a aesthetic. I have a particular set of sounds that I like, and they definitely influence Thievery Corporation quite a bit. And I feel that I'm chasing my heroes a lot. So in this latest record, some Italian composers and film composers were my heroes of the moment. They've been my heroes for a long time, but I started thinking about some of the unique music that was made by Armando Trovajoli and Piero Picconi and Les Iman, and these sort of not household names in the United States, but they make some pretty trippy music from back in the day, late 60s, early 70s. And I thought, I really want to make that kind of music. I want to make that level of music. And I really can't, but at times I can come close, like with the song Maestro del Sueño, for instance. You know, I'm hunting the mammoth there, and I'm really trying to be a peer for just a second of these types of composers. And it's a challenge for me, and I really enjoy it. I guess it's like for somebody who got into the Rolling Stones back in the day and, you know, wanted to form a rock band and that was their hero. They wanted to sound that good. Or maybe the Rolling Stones wanted to sound as good as, I don't know, a old blues artist. You know,
Yeah,
everybody
Muddy
has
Waters.
heroes. Muddy Waters, exactly. So, you know, it's just a form of challenging myself. And yeah.
Okay. You're having fun.
I'm having a lot of fun. Yeah, I really am. I've never enjoyed making music as much as I have this past year. And I
What
think
is
that
it that's...
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm just no, tell me what it is. Like, I have a question, but I've finished that.
I think I got a little bit lazy. Like I never had to play keys, right? Because I always work with Rob, who, you know, Rob's a better keyboard player. So I'm like the bass and beats guy, you know, or I'll write horn lines or come up with some melodies. But we all have our lanes when we work in groups or duos. But when you work alone, you don't have, it's all your lane, you know, so you have to work on your weak points. And then you find out, wait, those are actually strong points. I can do this, you know. It's a very, it's a big revelation for somebody who's trying to make music.
Yeah. Okay. So you're also an inspiration for people. You know, like when I was talking to Kruder and Dorfmeister, they're like, you know, we're all older. We've all experienced things, and there's a period of time in your life where you're like just absorbing, and learning, and then inevitably life becomes complicated. You know, things start coming up, and you don't, and then you tell yourself, I can't really do that anymore, or like my time has passed, or I don't know about that anymore. And so you're actually, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to continue to evolve as an artist. I'm going to continue to try this and push this. And so, you know, there could be a bunch of psychological reasons why you're doing this, but I'm also curious, is there something in the technology, is there something that has changed for you? Because when you guys started making music, there was a different, you know, making a sample or making a beat was a laborious process. You had to go through a bunch of stuff to make that work. It is much easier right now to do that. And I'm not making a value judgment one way or the other, but I'm curious, as the technology has made music easier to make, is that played a role in your inspiration, or is there something else?
Oh, no, it definitely has. Actually, I have to give a shout out to GarageBand because I wrote most of my first two records on GarageBand. I have not even made the leap to Logic. Our older engineer, Stone, from back in the days, was a Logic guy, and John Maria Conti, who does a lot of the Thievery engineering now, is a Pro Tools guy. And I was never very involved in the software. You know, or the engineering part of the software. When Rob and I first started, I had a ASR-10 workstation, and he had a MPC, and that was our gear. And I was good on the ASR-10, and he was good on the MPC, and we could just kind of work in tandem on those things. We could never do the types of things that are possible now, moving things into pitch that are out of pitch, like conga or something like that. I mean, everything was not really in key back then, but that was cool.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, it's fun. I don't like music when it's too perfect either. So, but yeah, the technology is making it very easy for anyone to make music, but I don't know if it makes music better per se.
No, it's, you still have to have the either the experience or just the gift or the ear, and with the thing that's different. That's different, exactly. The thing that's kind of special about both Thievery and especially now with your stuff, you got a look, and that look is really interesting. I'm looking right now at The Impossible Silence. I'm looking at Maestro del Suono, the single. There's a look, there's a vibe, there's a design aspect to it. It definitely pays. There's a homage to that time that you're talking about, the late '60s, early '70s. Why The Impossible Silence? Why the name for that?
Well, it kind of works on a few levels. Number one, I do find it hardest to make quiet music. It's probably the most challenging music. Of all the Thievery albums, I think Saudade was probably the hardest record to make. And it also happens to be arguably my favorite, although it's hard to pick a favorite.
Right there.
I saw that. Yeah, that's great. Neil Ashby, my college friend, obviously did the artwork for that, and he does my own artwork now.
No, it's really, really good. It's nice to see.
Yeah, it is. I love including the aesthetic with the music. I think it's important. So, the impossible silence, it's very hard to make quiet music, but also it was hard to kind of exist in the background with Thievery as Thievery became this almost like Cirque du Soleil type entity where, the touring just kind of took over everything. I told Rob the other day, I loved those early days of Thievery when it was just him and me in the studio making music. Yeah. But we've been bi-coastal for, I think, like almost 15 years, you know. So the amount of time that Rob and I actually spend in the studio these days is like a few days a year, and it's been like that for a while. So it's just, I think it's time to kind of focus on our own projects for the moment and enjoy that. Doesn't mean anything's happening with Thievery other than we're on hiatus like everybody else.
Yeah. You're not going on tour for a while. Let's leave that alone. But it's also inspiring because you're going to bring stuff back to Thievery that you will have learned through this process, working on these records.
Very true.
And it's also, you're right about quiet music, making that. How difficult that could be, but it's also needed right now because, like either whether you're watching movies or you're listening to music, we're in a different time right now, and we need artists to make music for that time, and it's not bombastic, ego-driven. Look how hot I am. It is more introspective, as we kind of like recharge. Just stay healthy. Wear a freaking mask. Recharge and then see what happens, and these types of sounds, this type of music, this type of artistic expression is recharging. I'm not putting you in spa land or anything like that, which is great in and of itself, but it is this, and I was listening to it, I was like, this is like a good, after listening I feel better than before. I don't feel like overly charged up or anything. It's a really interesting vibe. So one of the other things that I want to talk to you about is when Thievery started, there was no downloads, okay? None. You had like CDs, records. We're in this mode right now where we're streaming. And obviously, God, I sound like so stupid when I'm saying this, but it's true. We're in streaming mode.
The kids are streaming.
The kids are streaming, but the music industry is constantly, finding ways to kill itself. And then give birth to itself again. I just took all my CDs and ripped them when COVID first hit, and it's a significant collection. I just now put all my CDs that I had in books, all my mix CDs and everything like that. I put all of those, and that's like giant bins of stuff, because remember, that's how we used to DJ. It was like you had those in and you put them in. They're in a bin right now, going in my garage. You know where they're going to go. I'm just not ready yet.
You're just delaying the inevitable, right?
But I just got to delay the inevitable to make that thing work. Because I can't let go of these things, because these things were, they were objects that had meaning to me. They were important to me because they were my favorites. I put those favorites into a thing that I could hold and listen to. Right now, your favorites aren't a mixtape. Your favorite is a playlist that lives on another platform or platforms, and that's how you talk about your favorite stuff. It's no longer here, it's here. Now, you're a musician. Sorry for the long story, but I kind of put it into context.
No. It's important.
You're now taking your stuff that you used to go like, these are my records, or this is my CD. Like, you've made compilation CDs of your stuff. Now it's
I love
on now it's a playlist that you can't make segues the way you want, or you can't create the artwork around it. The design aesthetic that you want to have isn't there. expand on that for me, because I'm always like, I have my own feelings of what that means, and I'm kind of like, I'm making way too many playlists.
Yeah.
And it's just because it's so easy. It wasn't then. It was like you had to make some choices. You had limited amount of time. This is the CD or this is the cassette. That's it. You want to put more on there? It's too bad.
Well, it took some skill,
yeah, it took some skill. So I was listening to your playlist, but tell me about your thoughts on that, because of somebody who has gone through, you and I talked about years ago when you got your first test pressing of your record, how important that was, and now
I just got one yesterday.
It's the same. And records are back. Everything dies, but record seems to be immortal. But now playlists are the ones that's the model that seems to be working. So speak to that, please.
Well, I have so many thoughts about that. So I was talking to Neil, who designed Saudade Behind You and designs my records and all the Thievery stuff. And we both agreed that you have not released an album unless there is a physical product. We can't wrap our heads around the fact, this idea that you have an album, but it only exists as ones and zeros in the internet. That seems very strange to me. Just a sign of my age, I'm sure. So that's one. And then I came, before this, I was at a meeting with Daryl Burke, who does the archives with me, the reggae project, and John Maria, who also does a bunch of projects with me, and Thievery Corporation. And we were lamenting how expensive it is to press vinyl. And Jama is under the impression, forget vinyl. I love vinyl, but no one cares, and it's a pain. Let's just do digital releases. And Daryl is always hyping vinyl. He's like, oh, no, the young kids are really into vinyl. And I said, the young kids, really? I mean, it's like 1% of the music market or something like that. I don't know. Well, but there's vinyl in Walmart or something. And then I said, well, if it's in Walmart, does that mean that this vinyl craze is about to peak out and go away? Or, it's just, you don't know, right? So the music industry is kind of a catastrophe, more so than ever. And, the streaming services don't pay very much. Sorry, Spotify, don't ban me off. I need
No, it's true. It's true. They don't. They don't. And there's Bandcamp and others. But what do you do with that?
I have a solution. So every song should have a kind of like a watermark or a blockchain. Mm-hmm. And as it goes through the internet with its own unique blockchain, it should get tracked for how many listens and where it goes and how it's consumed. And then we would know, ISP providers, they collect a lot of money when you sign up for your internet, but then you just get free stuff through the internet, right? So artists don't necessarily get paid for a lot of the enjoyment that they provide for free, right? Yeah. And any artist worth his salt or her salt doesn't make art for the money. So we're great suckers because we're not even doing it for the money. We would do this for free, and many of us do. But there are technological ways that I think could solve the problem very easily. But the first people to be sacrificed are always the artists, I think. So, maybe we're just living through that, And I feel very sorry for young bands that I meet. Like I know a few in DC that have a lot of talent, and they're not bands even, they're producers, kind of like me and Rob, we just started as producers. And I feel I don't know how you're going to make a living doing this. I wish I could tell you that I have secret sauce and here it is, but I don't know.
But it's interesting because you guys have been able to make a, not quote unquote a living, but like a career. Yeah, and that which led to a whole bunch of other things. And now I was really intrigued when I saw that your first record came out, Infinite Everywhere. I was like, okay, this is cool, this is interesting. Because I remember I was in D.C. and we were chatting. I went to the original Thievery recording studio, and you were working on some B-sides that came out for a Thievery record. And I was like, this is awesome stuff. And then I think
Treasures, Treasures from the Temple.
Treasures.
Yeah.
And then there was this, okay, some other stuff is coming, and here it is. And but at the same time, you have there are trajectories of artists. When they make music, they become successful, and sometimes they just do nothing. Sometimes they go to Vegas and do a show, you know, like weekly.
Yeah.
But sometimes they become more entrenched in their community, and that's the road that you took. You started to buy restaurants, and you started restaurants. They had a beautiful, like, I remember being, I think it was Marvin's, was the place, and you took on the role of like sage counsel and somebody who wants to hold on to the thing that makes DC DC from a musical perspective. You know, I think it was U Street and that neighborhood. I'm trying to remember that. You started to, like, you know, invest in these places to make sure that they wouldn't turn into Chase Bank or something. That the culture of the city that gave birth to you and gave birth to others, and you know, you kind of, I guess you realized that you were part of the legacy of the city right now from a musical perspective. Speak to that if you can.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a great feeling to be one of the well-known artists from your city. You know, DC isn't really considered this incredible music hotbed, but we have some, you know, great people like Fugazi and Minor Threat, and the punk scene from when I was growing up was a very influential scene on myself and Rob. So that's a great feeling. I do have a lot of affinity for DC because it is my hometown. And I try my best to be encouraging to other artists in the city. But Thievery was born out of the hospitality industry, strangely, because it was born out of 18th Street Lounge, which was my first significant hospitality venture. To use a sort of corporate term, hospitality. We were not that hospitable all the time because we were kind of like an underground club in a way with no sign, and we built it amongst our peer group and friends.
That's a funny term for 18th Street Lounge when it began.
Yeah, it was just so weird. It was a daunting place for some, and then a home away from home for others, and it took a while for people to understand that it was really a very approachable place. We just weren't hyping it or advertising it per se. But that's where I met Rob, and we had our studio in the lounge for a number of years, and I think we made the first 3 records in 18th Street Lounge, which is amazing. And that was cool. And then we got a studio in Adams Morgan and did a bunch of records there. But yeah, DC is my hometown, so I've always been pretty entrenched in this city.
Okay, beautiful. And you guys never, so you started the label at the same time. You did all the right things that people now say, wow, that was really smart. But when you started getting some heat, the major labels started to come in and throwing money at you and making offers. And I remember we had this conversation. It's like you said, like, I don't want to do that because I don't want to make remixes for artists I really don't respect or like at all. And so out of that particular time period, which was also, I remember, you know, looking at your playlists, you know, you had UFO and others on there. Of that time, you guys are still here. You and K&D are one of the few artists that are still together, working with your own label, with your own control of this. And at the time, people were buying, you know, it's the music industry. If it's good, we're going to buy it, and we're going to clone it until whatever was beautiful is dead. What was the mindset that, like, no, because there was some serious money being thrown at you, and it's not like you're, you know, nobody's rich, nobody's got a trust fund. It's like, what was the mindset to say no to that, where others were like, are you whack? What are you doing? That's cash.
You know, it's really hard to say other than just an instinct. And I do believe that the Discord label in DC, which is Fugazi, Minor Threat, Ian Mackay was an owner of that label and a big part of it. I think they were very influential on us. We saw them doing it themselves and remaining independent. And we looked up to them artistically, although we do different things, but also as a, you know, business and sort of a cottage business. So I think we thought, well, what would Discord do here? And, well, clearly they wouldn't sell to Palm Pictures, which is Chris Blackwell's company. And I know Chris, and hey, Chris, you know, he's a great guy. But even he said, we went out for a drink a couple of years ago when he was in DC, and he said, you know, you were very smart not to to go with that deal. I was like, thank you. I appreciate that. I think because maybe he had some internal issues with the company, but
totally
it was
did,
nice. It was nice to hear. And remaining independent is great, but wow, you are in for a lot of work, and you will make a lot of mistakes too. I'm not going to say it's the be all and end all, and I wouldn't recommend it for everybody. You do have to calculate royalties. You got to pay people. You got to pay your bills. There is some business 101 in there that you cannot avoid. And sometimes you screw up, and sometimes, things just go great. The thing that we got the most heat from back in the day, if you'll remember, that was licensing, because we were very successful with licensing our music. We were blown away with all the cold calls we were getting, like Citibank wants to license Indra, and they want to give you this 6 figures. And we're like, fine. I don't care who it is. I mean, I think Coke, Pepsi, McDonald's, maybe we said no, but we were criticized by some underground folks in DC for selling out back then, which is interesting because everybody wants to get a license now,
That whole thing, like sell out, that's kind of like the only way that you're going to really make money. Not selling out, but licensing is the magic, is the secret sauce. Okay, so I want to go through a couple of quick things with you, because we I want to do this again. Actually, we can go a little deeper.
Definitely.
What were you listening to? Because you and I had this moment where we just totally bonded over Style Council, not the jam. But it was specifically the Style Council, and there was like, we just went deep. And I was looking through your playlist, and I was like, and on Spotify, check it out if you can. Just look for Eric Hilton; it's there. What was it about that sound, and what other things, what other bands, and maybe even songs, made you who you are right now, my friend?
Mm-hmm. Oh wow, that's a difficult question, but I'll try to answer it. Always been a fan of anything Paul Weller has done. He's definitely a music god for me, and had the pleasure of meeting him and talking to him a few times. And the funniest thing was the first time I met him, Seth from 930 Club and IMP, he said, "Oh yeah, this is Eric from Thievery Corporation." He's like, "Sorry, mate, never heard of it."
At least he's honest.
Yeah, he's cool. He's cool. Yeah. So, but the Style Council, the interesting thing about that group is he shook off the Jam, which was at the time the biggest rock band in England, maybe considered one of the biggest pop bands in England. He just said, "Nope, I'm done," which is very brave. And then he started the Style Council, which is very, very broad stylistically. And I think that resonated with me very deeply. So when we started Thievery Corporation, I always thought about the Style Council, and I said, that is a great luxury to be able to touch so many different genres and get away with it. Like the fact that you can do reggae and dancehall, and then you can do easy listening or bossa, and your fans will stick with you. That to me has been the amazing thing of Thievery, is that we were allowed by our fan base to dabble in different directions and create like a broad spectrum of sound. And the Style Council did that. So they were the first ones that I ever saw do that.
You guys, you hear Jamaica in there, but you started incorporating South Asian styles, definitely bossa. You just, released a whole record in homage to Brazil of a particular time, 60s, 70s, some of the sounds that are coming out of Italy. What was the thing that got you guys worldly, shall we say? Was it like because you were touring and successful, or what was the thing that got you
it was before
global?
It was before we ever toured. Just Rob and I were very interested in music from other cultures, and we saw the way we were putting together Thievery Corporation music as a great opportunity to steal from other cultures, essentially, because we were sampling a lot. So we could sample Indian beats, Indian sarod or sitar pieces, Arabic beats. The sampling world back then was so wide open and so interesting, and it made for a lot of interesting music and opportunities to make music, that sticking to your own culture was just too limiting. So it was a combination of an interest and access. So through records we gained access, and we had an interest. So we used all cultures to make our music, and that's what suited us.
But you started incorporating those cultures and those sounds into the live show. You had a sitar player, you had different... You guys started singing songs in different languages, and if you're a label head, you're like, what are you doing? Nobody can speak that. Nobody can understand it in your fan base.
It's impractical.
And it's impractical. And the music started to expand. There was there was more play there, and it tells you that you spend time listening and exploring. You guys never stopped. And you specifically, you never stopped. You never were like, okay, I'm successful, that's it. I'm not going to do this anymore. Like right now, I'm going through this with a lot of my dear friends. Everybody's reconnecting in one form or another because of COVID. A lot of my friends that I have just listened to the same stuff they listened to when they were in their 20s. And it's like, there's some amazing stuff out there. Like, you don't... But it's comfortable. It makes them feel. It's that feeling of sadhaja. It's just that wonderful nostalgia. But it stops. It's like it's fake. And so with you guys, it's always been like, let's go deeper here. Let's go to explore this. Let's go explore that. And right now, with your record, The Impossible Sounds, there's more exploration going on there. It's not like you're always super focused on the future. It's like, let me dig deeper here. Let me explore this here. What can I do with this in there? And I want to kind of close with this because I want this to be as an inspiration. What do you think it is in you? Like, what was the thing that made you that got that into your DNA? Because once you're a success, so you don't have to continue. But what is it about your DNA that made you into this nomad, shall we say?
The nomad part, I have no idea. Other than just curiosity. That's it. In terms of the music making, I don't know. I think we all have things in our life where we think, I really like that. I want to do that. I remember saying I want to open a club in my head and saying it to a couple of friends. And then through banding together with a couple of friends, we did that. And I wanted to make music, and I struggled for several years of just making what was pretty mediocre music, but I was learning and trying, and fortunately I met Rob, and we really complemented each other in such a great way that really started to take off. But I think at this point, I just want to impress myself. I want to go down roads that are only interesting to me and musically, and I want to be able to listen to my music after it's made and really enjoy it. Make music that I truly want to listen to. That's where I'm coming from right now.
Okay, so it's always been personal.
It's very personal.
The audience is I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but the audience is secondary. It's really how you feel in making music. Actually,
even beyond secondary, and it's no disrespect to them, the fact that they even listen is so touching to me. But I do believe you can't really make music for anyone but yourself, or the people you're making it with. That's perfect. That's all it is.
Perfect. Okay. Eric Hilton, thank you so much.
Darek,
the new record is The Impossible Silence, out on ESL, 18th Street Lounge.
It's on Montserrat.
No?
Montserrat.
House. Oh, yeah. Sorry, my bad. We just got pulled into that whole vortex.
Yeah.
There'll be another Thievery record inevitably, and you're surviving and you're growing.
Yes.
And this is awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks again. Appreciate it.
Well, hang in there, my friend, and thanks for doing the talk. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you. Okay. See you later.
All right.
Bye.
Ciao.